Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's session. I'm Marco DiGeorge. I'm the co founder of Truthful Acting Studios. We are an acting conservatory that's located in Orlando, Florida. And from time to time, we come on and we do these sessions to talk about different aspects of acting. And today, we want to discuss the basics of film acting. And so, with the basics of film acting, what I really want to start off doing is talking about how film acting, is different than other acting. Because that's really the first thing that comes up is because I get a lot of students that when they first take my class or they first come up to me, their inspiration is film or television and they say, "Well, this is what I really want to do. I really want to get into acting because I want to be in movies or I want to be on television or I want to be on a streaming service like Netflix or something." And it's like, okay, so how can I do that? And so I'm like, okay, so you want to get right into film. So there's a lot of training involved to do that. And but they have this misconception that, well, because it's, I don't want to do theater or I don't want to do anything on stage. I just want to go on to film. So isn't there a quicker way there? Isn't there a shortcut to jump right into film because film should be easier, right? And that's the misconception of the whole thing. So, what I'd like to do today is to first start off by discussing how film acting is unique from other mediums, such as theater acting. And really, those are the two platforms we're going to be looking at and comparing because we're either live on stage presenting something to an audience, which is what we do in theater, live performance, those type of things. Or we are in front of a camera and it's being recorded and then put together later for an audience. So, film acting is what we do when we're on camera. And the main difference, how film acting is unique versus theater, is theater's live. Theater is right there, right now. The audience is right there. They're watching something happening before them that is occurring in real time. Versus in film, it's done behind the scenes and we record it piece by piece by piece and then we string it all together. So it's like, okay, so that's really the main difference. But then to go even further, film acting is even more unique and we don't really realize this, but when we're filming an overall scene for something, it's done in these very small pieces. We're not filming the whole scene at once. So we can take even like a 4-minute scene in a TV show or a movie, which is a 4-minute scene is a pretty is a decent sized scene. And but we're not filming the 4 minutes at once. We don't have multiple cameras shooting it at the same time. It's single camera, and we're putting you in frame, and we're saying, okay, for this shot, a shot is a camera setup. It means when we set up the cameras, we set up the lights, we set up this particular composition. That's called a shot. And for this shot, we're only going to need this one half of this page. And then we record this one half of this one page from this angle. And then cut, we stop, and then it's like, okay, we reset to the top of that thing again, and we do it again. That's called a take. And so we do take after take after take of the same thing over and over and over. Now, this is just one angle. This is just one shot. Then it's going to be, okay, now we're going to move the camera. We're going to get a different angle. We're either going to move the camera closer to the subject, meaning, coming in on this person's face, or we're going to pull it out, show a wider shot, but we're going to move the camera and set up a different shot. And then we're going to record the same thing again, the same half of page. And then we're going to do that take after take after take. Then from there, we move the camera again, and then we record it again, take after take after take. Now, this is just one, let's say there's a conversation. Let's say I'm having a conversation with somebody else, and in this conversation, the camera's only been pointing in one direction so far. So now we have to flip the camera around, and now the camera is pointing at the other scene partner, and now we do the same thing over and over and over again. So we record a scene, like a simple 4-minute scene of two people having a conversation. We're going to have, several different shots, 6 to 8 camera setups to record that scene, and then maybe 5 or 6 takes within each camera setup. So we're shooting this 4-minute scene 30, 40, 50 times. And then we take all of that material, all of that redundancy that we've done over and over and over and over again, and that goes into what we call the editing process or post-production. And then the editor takes all of that footage and takes out slivers of each one. They go through every take and they look at everything that they have and they say, what is the best performance of each one of these? And we take the best performance and we put it together. We take the best performance and we add it in, right? So we're putting together like the best of everything we did, and we're constructing the scene that way. So really, the main thing to take away from this is that a film is made in the editing process. It's not made live. We're just capturing material when we're actually filming it. But the film, the scene itself, how it flows, all of those things are built afterwards in the editing process. And this is a very important thing to understand for the actor, because when we're acting in film, we have to just do do our part. Whatever the director is asking us to do in that moment, that's all we have to do, because it feels so much different to us live. We're live on set. We're live in that moment, actually doing these things, and it feels very, very different than what they're looking at on camera and understanding how it's going to fit all together. For example, let's say I have a minute of material. We're shooting a minute scene, and in that minute of dialogue that I have back and forth, I stumble on one of my lines. Well, what many actors would do is immediately, just as soon as you stumble, it's like, can we cut and do that again? Like we stop ourselves in that momentum. And what we're not realizing is, even though in a minute of recording a scene, I stumbled on one line, how do I know the rest of it isn't usable? And the moment I stop that momentum, the moment I drop out of the life of the character, the moment I stop the process as the actor, I'm now getting in the way and interfering with the creative process of the director. The director might have been getting something they really liked, but because I dropped out of it, then I interfered with that. And so part of being an actor is learning how to stay in the life no matter what. And it's very difficult in film acting because we're thinking a lot in film acting. We're in our head. And so that this is why when actors come to me and they say, "Well, I really want to get into film acting. I really want to be on film." And I see there's all of these, classes all over the country, all over the world that are aimed directly at just film acting. And they're short form classes, like a once a week scene study type of class, and it will help you get into film. It's like, is that enough? And so my answer is no. Because what we need to learn, it doesn't matter if it's film, it doesn't matter if it's theater. What we need to learn is that our job as the actor is to step into that life and to stay in that life, no matter what, until the director says cut. If the director does not stop the scene, we continue the life. Doesn't matter what goes wrong. Doesn't matter how how much we flub our lines or forget where we are or any of those things. We stay in it. And so this is one of the difficult things. So it requires training to do that. Because as an actor, and really through all of acting training, the main thing for an actor to learn is to invest and commit to something called the moment, meaning be here now in this moment, whatever the scene is. Put all of your focus outward on your scene partner or whatever it is that you're doing, and stay in that life. Live truthfully under the imaginary circumstances of the script, moment after moment after moment. And that's our job. But the problem with that is the moment we get pulled into our head, the moment we start thinking and our logical brain has been activated, it's we start uh, uh, it gets in our way. It gets in our way. If we have to think about what to say, our brain goes into a panic attack. We have anxiety, and then we stop, we freeze up. If we think about, oh, what am I supposed to do next? We get anxiety, and then we end up stopping. So all of these things interfere. Thinking actually interferes with acting, logical thinking. So what we need to learn how to do is we need to learn how to invest ourselves in the moment. And this takes training. It takes long form training. So the biggest thing is that uh, it's the importance of theater for an actor and the importance of a deep level process, like training in a deep level process. It's, uh, you know, we're always looking for the shortcut as actors. We're always looking for the quick way in, and how do we just get into it very, as fast as we can. And I love the passion behind that because it does mean that, well, you're passionate about it and you definitely want to do this, and and I love that. But we also have to understand that uh, it takes time to learn, and it takes consistency of the training to learn. So that's why we need this training. Now, the importance of theater, and I know this is confusing when someone's first starting out training. It's like, oh, I want to be in film. Why would I have to study theater? Is there's really no difference at the foundational level of acting. Acting is acting is acting, and what theater training provides is, when you're working live on a stage, it provides the necessity to stay in the life. Because when you're acting on a stage in front of a live audience, there is no dropping out of it. There is no take two, right? We can't stop and reset. The show must go on. And that's a very important lesson. Stay in that life, no matter what. And when you're on stage, you learn how to do that. And you learn how to adapt and you learn how to adjust. And so that's the most important thing. Theater teaches us that. Theater also teaches us how to go deeper into something called characterization. So, in when we're developing a character, right, we're stepping into that life. It's in film, because we're shooting it sliver by sliver, right, piece by piece, there's no momentum. So it's hard to really get into the life and stay in it long term because we're really only shooting a minute at a time, maybe 2 minutes, but that's it. Where in theater on stage, you start the beginning of the play and it runs into the end of the play. So we have an amazing momentum that we can get into and a much deeper level of this thing called characterization. And so it teaches us that. And then we can take the skills that we learn in theater and we bring that to film. The other thing about film that is something that we need to know: film is shot out of order. So in theater, as I just said, we start at the beginning of the play and we run to the end. It's in order of the story. But in film, we organize the production, the filming schedule of it, uh, based in, it's all logistical. So it's based in like locations. If we have this location today, we're going to go through the script, and anything that occurs in this location, we're going to try to shoot all at once throughout the day. So we might be jumping around. Your first day of filming might be the ending scene in the movie. The second day of filming, then you might do the first scene in the movie. So you're actually jumping around the script. And that's also a very difficult thing for an actor. So we have to learn that. But if we learn the deeper process of acting, which is considered the theater process of acting, if we learn that deeper process of developing that character and all the work we have to do before we're even on set, then we won't have an issue at all with that jumping around. And then the last thing in this area that I want to talk about is, in theater, it demands that we give our attention fully to what's around us. And sometimes we're doing something called black box theater. And black box theater means that the stage is basically a black box, and it's meant to be implied. The environment is implied, and the audience kind of fills in the environment with their imagination, but it's very minimalistic, and the actors are up there just in the life. So as an actor, we have to imagine and learn to imagine our environment, imagine where we are, when we are, all of those things. So it engages our deeper imagination, and we're able to really just jump into any scene in any moment, and we can really feel like we're there because we have worked on that imagination over a long process. Well, film is very similar in that way because when you're on a film set, I know when you're looking at a film, it looks like there's these wonderful environments that they're in. But most of the environments are not real environments. They are sets that are built. And so when you're on a set, on a sound stage, the camera, like the camera's looking at me and I'm on camera and you're seeing an environment behind me. But what me, the actor, what I'm looking at, there's a camera in front of me and there's lights in front of me and there's the crew in front of me. I'm not looking at the environment. I'm seeing all of the work that's going into this. The camera sees the environment. And so this is where, as a film actor, we have to take those same trainings that we learn in theater to engage our imagination, to really invest in this moment, and to just we have to just let go of the crew. We have to let go of the lights that are right here in front of us, the camera that's like really close to us, all of the people that are working. I mean, all of this stuff, and just hopefully we our scene partner is somewhere over here, and we give all of our attention to them, and just allow ourselves to be in this moment, moment after moment after moment. Uh, so we had a question in the chat. So does the bit by bit process in film make the moment you're in less organic? Is that a challenge? So, well, it's definitely a challenge because it's bit by bit. But as far as less organic, well, the goal is no. The goal is for it to be just as organic as anything else, and that's what the great actors do. They're able, and this is over, again, it's over a long period of time, a long period of training, and a long period of doing this, and giving themselves permission to just jump in. But the goal is to be able to jump into this little sliver and really live it and be as organic as you possibly can. And there's a lot of imagination work in that. And the biggest thing is mental work. And what I mean by that is we have to mentally pull our focus to right here, right now. Because even though we are here, like we are in this moment physically, typically your mind is thinking about something that has just happened, the past, or we're worried about what's going to happen next, the future. So our mind is focused elsewhere. Well, in acting, we have to pull that focus. So mentally, our focus is on this moment. We're not thinking about the past or we're not thinking about what's coming next, but we're giving everything to this moment, moment after moment after moment. And if we can do that, we can maintain that organic ability. We can learn how to truly, it's called outward focus, and it's something that we work on quite a bit at the studio, the ability to put all of your focus on your partner. And then we call it working off. So, in other words, we're not planning on how we're going to say our next line. We give all of our attention to our scene partner, and we really just simply react to what they're giving us. We react to the world around us. And so, because of that, because of those things that we train on, we're able to be very organic in that process. But we learn all of those organic skills in a deeper level process, a deeper level training. And so that's why that's so important to do. So another question, do directors ever plan to shoot the film in correct chronological order for the benefit of the actors? Or is that unheard of? That typically does not happen. Now, it has happened. So there are times, and you more see it in short film where you don't have, with short film you don't have many locations, so you have the ability to schedule it in that way. uh, or maybe an independent film. It really comes down to, do you have the logistical ability to schedule everything in order? And typically, when we're dealing with uh, more locations, more complexity, we just don't. It would cost us way more money to shoot it in order, so we don't. But it has occurred. So, and sometimes depending on the complexity of the character, for example, in the movie Rain Man that came out in the 90s, uh, with Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman, there was the request. They tried to shoot that in order of the film, so the characterizations, especially of Dustin Hoffman's, could have an easier flow. So they tried to arrange that one more in that order. But typically, no, it's most of the time it's completely out of order. And we're dealing with locations. That's a big one. And we're also dealing with actor schedules. So, because we're paying the actors for a certain amount of time to work on this film. And if you have the actor for 2 weeks, you need to shoot anything that has them involved within these 2 weeks. So your higher paid actors, you try to get them in, shoot their scenes and get them out. So that's why we typically don't do that. And really, as an actor, it's it's fine. I mean, we it's something that we just learn to do. It's really not that big of a deal for us. It is in the very beginning. It's very jarring in the beginning, but once we learn how to do it, um, we learn how to jump around in the script, and we know. It's like we have a call sheet. It's what tells us what we're shooting that day, that the production gives us. It says, okay, these are the scenes we're shooting, and then I mentally and emotionally prepare myself for that, and I'm ready to shoot those. So it really isn't as difficult as it sounds once you learn the process and the tools to go through that. So okay, here's another question. How can actors stay safe psychologically and emotionally through a deep level process training? So, great question. Safety is one of the most important things to me personally and in my training or in my teaching process. And I stress safety uh, and appropriateness in all of my classes. So I teach both acting and I teach directing as well. And regardless on which side I'm teaching on, I teach both those things, safety and appropriateness. And with safety, it's psychologically, it's emotionally, it's physically, and it basically those things. And with intimacy, so there's intimate safety, psychological and emotional safety, and physical safety. And so, in the training, in the deep level process training, we train for that safety, meaning the way it's constructed. And it's the reason I personally love the methodology I teach. Uh, the process I teach is based in something called the Meisner technique, and which is based in the teachings of Sanford Meisner, who is one of our grandfathers of modern day acting. And so, in that teaching, Meisner developed a process that is based in human psychology. But not just any human psychology, it's based in human behavioral psychology and the safety of human behavioral psychology, meaning that the process is built to be safe for the actor to use. And the process is built to be actually very healing for the actor to use. It's almost therapeutic in its own process. And I love that because it allows our acting, even when we're going to extreme devastation or some of these very difficult places, it allows it to be joyful. It allows it to be something that is fun to do because we learn how to step into the life and then we learn how to step out of the life. So we don't have to go somewhere and stay in it for a long period of time. We step in and we step out. And we teach both of those steps. And in addition, we also learn how to work from our imagination. Working from imagination is critical because there are other processes that are not organic that that are more technical based, and they will ask you to work from real events in your life, actual trauma in your life, and this is dangerous. I really have a hard time with those processes because essentially what they're asking an actor to do is to visualize, go back in your life in a time where you had trauma and visualize it again. And when you visualize it, you bring up the feelings of that trauma, and then you take those feelings and you channel them into the scene. And while, you know, does it actually do that? Yeah, it does. But the problem is there's no way to step out of the life afterwards because this is actual trauma that you're digging up in your life. These are actual events from your real life that you're working from. And because of that, there's no safety to it. And it becomes very unsafe for you, the actor. It becomes unsafe for the people around you. And it becomes unsafe for the the whole production because the whole production can halt if you're not mentally and emotionally stable. So, so I stay away from that completely. And instead, we learn a process that utilizes imagination work and allows us to step into very authentic and truthful places, but that we create. And because we create it, we know it's imaginary, and we're able to now step into that. And then we do something called trigger out, which is a process I teach, which allows us to step out of that life, and it takes about 5 seconds, and that's it. And so we create this level of safety while we go through the training. And in that way, as an actor, you know you don't have to be in a bad mood today because your character is going to be in a bad mood later, and you know because that's just not fun. Instead, you can have a great day. You can show up to set. It's like, okay, now we're shooting this devastating scene, and it's like, and you can step into it pretty quickly. And then when the scene is done, you can trigger out, and you're out and you're fine. And we separate out completely you as the actor versus you as the character. We form a complete separation of those two pieces. So that's how we do that. Uh, so the next question is, do I need to do theater acting before film acting? Not necessarily. you can you can do them both at the same time, or you know, it doesn't have to go in that order when you're first starting out. Because with film acting, there's student film, independent film. There's things that are more accessible. However, if you study a deep process, it's going to be based in theater. So if and this is at artistic universities, this is at conservatories like ours, or the conservatories like that they have all throughout New York, the Stella Adler Conservatory, the William Esper Conservatory, Juilliard, you know, Conservatory. Those are all going to be based in a theater process, and the only reason we call it a theater process is because it's stage work. But really, you know, that has been something that has surfaced in my lifetime, the separation between stage and film. Really, acting is acting is acting. So even if you go to a prestigious school like Juilliard, they're just teaching you acting. They're not looking at it like, am I learning film or theater? It's like, well, you're learning all of it because everything you learn in that deeper process is for all platforms of acting. And then what we do is we layer on top of it technique. The technique, which is a technical layer, is, are we in front of the camera, you know, on film, or are we on stage in front of a live audience? There's just different technique to that. There's technique of how we work with the camera versus how we work with an audience. But underneath it, the characterization and how we access emotion and how we step into the life, and it's all the same. So how we analyze a script and develop a character, it's all the same. So that's where a deep level process will help you, is it will allow you to get into those deeper realms and then apply it to anything that you need to apply it to. You can apply it to live performance, you can apply it to TV, film, web series, theme park work, really anything, live presentation or public speaking. I mean, it applies to all of it. Let's see. So, next question. Do you think that the best actors are taught to act, or do they come with a natural born talent? Or could it be a little of both? Great question. And I did another whole topic on this. So if you look through my past topics, I actually have one that is labeled is acting a talent or a skill. And so I talk at length about it there, but I definitely want to cover it here as well. And uh, so there's the misconception is that people are born with the ability to act. There's actually a misconception that people are born with the ability to do whatever they do. And it's an easy thing that we do when we see somebody great doing what they do, whether it's an artist, it's a singer, it's a musician, a dancer, an actor, whatever it is, someone that plays a sport. Um, when we see someone do something great, we immediately want to say, "Wow, they're just naturally talented at that." And really, what we're doing when we say that is we're giving ourselves an excuse for why we're not doing that. That's what that is. We're actually not complimenting them, because saying someone is naturally talented is not a compliment. But we're saying that they're naturally talented because we're not doing it ourselves. So it lets us off the hook. It gives us an out. It's like, well, yeah, well, we're not doing it because they're naturally talented at it. That's why they're doing it. And the reason I say it's not a compliment, it's because it immediately minimizes and negates all of the exhausting hard work that they put in to get to where they're at. These people work incredibly hard. Whether you're looking at athletes, whether you're looking at musicians, whether you're looking at actors, they make it look easy because that's the illusion. That's what people who are great at what they do, experts at what they do, they make what they do look very simple. They make it look easy. But it's extremely difficult and they work to an exhausting level. So when you watch Meryl Streep do something, she works incredibly hard at doing what she does. She just makes it look easy. Denzel Washington, one of my favorites. Man, he's so good, but he works incredibly hard in every single role that he does. We just don't see that work. We see only the end result. So it's like, wow, they're just naturally talented at what they do. So my assessment of all of that is that no, there's not a natural born talent that uh, that allows you to do this. Now, my belief is that your natural talent, so to speak, is your drive or desire underneath it that allows you to work through adversity. That's when we can say somebody is talented. So, uh, if you have an inclination, because like for an example, acting, it's very difficult, and it takes a lot of training over and over and over. And it's once you get into the training aspect and you know what you don't know, and you're looking at this uphill battle that's in front of you of everything you have to learn and to do, it's exhausting. And a lot of actors say, no, you know what, I'm not ready for that, and they don't make it through. So but if you love it, if you have a desire for it, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to practice this every day. And even on the days where you don't feel like practicing and rehearsing and doing what you need to do, you do it anyway. That comes from a deeper drive or a love or a passion that's inside of you. That passion and desire is your talent. It's whatever you're drawn to. So if you have a love for music, maybe being a musician, playing a guitar, playing an instrument, or singing, you will work harder at that than anything else in your life. If you don't love it, the moment it gets difficult, well, you'll stop because why? Why would you put any time and effort into something you don't like? So that's where really talent comes in. And again, I have an entire breakdown of it in a separate session. So I'd encourage you to check that out. But just know if you have a love or passion for something, you can absolutely do it. Just start working on it. Just get started, and it will lead you there. Let's see. Matt is asking, apart from the Miser 1 and 2 courses offered at TA, uh, which are deep level process training. Which deep level process training do you suggest for people who want to do film and TV acting? So, so really, Matt, it comes down to, Miser 1 and 2 is what's we're building something there, right? So that's going to give you all of the basics. Even through those 2 semesters, it gives you all of the basic fundamentals for film and TV. But on top of that, yes, we have 2 semesters of auditioning. We have 8 months of audition training because auditioning is that difficult. And then that's the gateway to get into even film and TV. Beyond that, we have a dozen different semesters at TA. They're all applicable. When we see the great actors, and most of the great actors we see are from London, Australia, right? They're from abroad. The reason we see so many great actors come from those locations is because they spend so many years. They spend 6, 7 years of training in all of these different aspects. They don't simply like train just a little bit and then jump into acting. They've been training, they go through university training, then they come out of university training and they go into conservatory training, which is 3 to 4 years beyond university. Then they come out of that and they do something called the repertory training, which is theater. They're applying all of their work in theater and they do that for 2 to 3 years. So typically, if you start in school and you work your way through, you're by the age of 30 is when they tell their actors that now you can go work in American film. And by that point, they've worked on their voice, they've worked on their physicality, they've worked on their emotion, they've worked on their psychology, they've worked on their mental focus, and they've worked on their technique. They've worked on all of the different pillars of acting that then apply to anything that they want to do. And so that's really what I would say, Matt. Is any of the semesters we offer apply to both uh, uh, theater and film. However, we do have a semester of film technique, which is the layer we put on top, which is learning how to work directly in front of the camera, and then bring all of that emotion, that psychology, and everything else to that. It's very similar to, when I look at the best teaching methodologies and how to structure classes and things like that, I look to London and I look to Juilliard. And those are the two, my models that I base everything off of. And in both of those cases, they teach the deeper level process for years and then they layer technique on top of that. So let's see. The next question I have is, what would you say is the most important step towards starting a career in film acting for those who have had an acting foundation in theater? Okay, so if you've had an acting foundation in theater, if you've started there before, that's great, uh, because that gives you some idea of how to stay in the life and how to move through no matter what. So to move over to film, the best thing to do is start with student film, and meaning find a university that is close by wherever you are and look at if they have a film program, their students are going to be putting together films. And in those films, they're going to need actors. And so this is a very low risk way of just applying your skills in front of the camera and starting to learn. Now, in addition to that, if you have the ability to take classes that are geared towards that too, that's also a good thing to do. But really working in student film, and then from there you go to independent film, and from there you're now ready to tackle professional film. But learn what it's like to work on set. Learn what it's like to work on the camera, and in that environment of it being very choppy. Also on film, you're on set, like, you're actually physically there for about 10 hours, and it's a normal shoot day, but you only shoot, I mean, you're only in front of the camera acting for about 2 out of the 10. It's like a 1 to 5 ratio, meaning for every 5 hours, we're shooting one of those. And so there's a lot of waiting around. And so as an actor, that's another thing is, well, what do we do while we have all of that downtime on the set? And what is our process? And that's again where a deeper process comes in. It gives us the tools of this is what to work on in between what you're shooting on set, and continue working in theater, because that's here's the thing: the great actors, when you look at pull up an actor that you love and do some research on them, and the actors work in theater, right? When they're not shooting a film, they're doing theater, because all of the great actors know that this is where it happens, and this is where we cultivate our art. You don't get better as an actor by only working in film. You actually don't, because it's so technical. So there's no momentum, and there's not a long rehearsal process. I mean, there's so many things that we don't have when we go to film. So we can get more efficient in the technical aspects, but the deeper dive is either going to be done in a classroom or in theater. So continue that training there. All right. Well, thank you for those questions. I love that everyone's so interactive today. So I have a couple other questions that were submitted prior. We'll kind of walk through these one at a time. And this is something similar. Can you become an actor without professional training, and instead just learn as you go? And is it possible? It's possible, but you have to have some sort of immersive experience, meaning that actors that are born into an acting family, like those that have, the ones that have celebrity parents and so forth, and they're in that realm. Well, when you're born, at a young age, when you're on set all the time and you're learning it and you're in that type of family, well, you won't necessarily need the same level of training as somebody that's outside the industry, because you're immersed in it. Children actors that have been involved since they were 6 years old, I mean, that you're immersed in it. So when you have that level of immersive training, you don't necessarily need to then separately go to a deep level, because you've learned it since you were a kid. So that's a little different. But from outside the industry, as an adult wanting to get into the industry, you need the professional training. As an adult, it's very difficult to get everything you need just by doing it, because there's so many things you don't know, and you need to be presented with the things that you don't know, and then presented with a way on how to overcome them. And by only working in theater in roles, or only working in film, these are not acting instructors that are directing you. They're directors. They're just going to tell you what they want for that performance, but they're not teaching you how to do it. So getting some sort of training helps, because it's the teacher's responsibility to then show you a way through it, and then to get you to understand so you can do this now on your own. So I always recommend to always train, and the education never stops. As an actor, as an artist, we never stop learning, and I love that. So the next question I had is what method do most actors in film use? So uh, there's not one. There's not like an overriding methodology that actors use. It really depends on where you come from, uh, and where you are, and so there's not really one methodology. There's, for example, if you're in London and you're coming up through their training, they don't label everything like we do in America. In here in the United States, we tend to put a label on everything and kind of divide it up. Where in London, they just call it classical training. And so you can ask, well, is it Meisner based? It's like, well, it's not anything based. It's classical training. So it's is it method? Is it this? Is it that? And it's just because it's the same things that we learn. It's essentially the same process that I teach here, but we just don't give it titles. So because of that, they just call it classical training. And then they work on voice, they work on physicality, they work on emotion, they work on psychology, right? They just work on those different aspects with various tools. Uh, Here in the United States, we do have the Sanford Meisner approach, the Stella Adler approach, the Lee Strasberg approach, and Uta Hagen, and right. So we have various approaches, which are typically named after the people that created them. And but there's no one that is right or wrong. Really, what you have to do is find one that speaks to you, that you find to be accessible for yourself. And also, I would say, is find one that is safe for yourself, like one that you feel good about stepping in and you can step out, and one that is collaborative. To me, art needs to be a collaboration. And what I mean by that is when we're going in there as an actor, I want to collaborate with my other actors, right? With whomever I'm working with. I want to work with them. I want to collaborate with the director, meaning we're going to come together, discuss this thing, talk about it, and creatively figure it out as a group. And so I'm all for methodologies that teach that as well. But there's really not one. You just have to find the one that really speaks to you. For me, it's the Meisner technique, and then mixed in with my teaching style. It's based in Meisner, and then I also have a lot of classical training that is mixed into it. So next question is, what makes surface acting dangerous, and how does it differ from the Meisner technique? So surface acting, or what I would call technical acting, um, it's only dangerous if you're going into your actual events, like actual life. If you're utilizing past trauma or current trauma that you're going through, it's very dangerous. And it's dangerous because it will cause you to lose control. You'll lose control not just emotionally, which is okay, but you'll lose control physically, you'll lose control mentally. And that can be very, very dangerous. And I've seen actors get hurt. I've seen actors hurt the set or props or even equipment because they lose control of their emotions and it turns physical and they do something that they shouldn't do. And it's all because they're working from real events. So when I find that actors are untrained or technically trained, they tend to go toward that methodology for emotion. And so that's why what I look for in training, especially with the Meisner technique, is that safety. Is we can go all the way. We can go as far as we can possibly go, and it's powerful and it's truthful and it's effective to the audience. But we maintain our physical control and mental control all the time. Right? We don't ever forget where we are. We don't ever lose control of our physicality. We don't, so we're able to be way more precise in our performance with our emotional response. So that's what I would say to that. How can I show my emotions best in front of the camera? Okay, so now the camera's on you, and we need to have, because as I talked about, it's slivers, right? So it's not like on stage where we have momentum to ramp into an emotional moment or a longer scene that will give us the context for that. We're just asked, okay, here's the moment. We're going to put you on camera. This is the moment where you're at the funeral and you break down because you're devastated over the loss. And it's like, okay. And they'll put you in position. They'll say, get ready. And, they'll roll camera and do all of that and say action. And our job is to break down. And so it's a difficult thing. We learn in the process ways to do that. We learn a tool called emotional preparation. And emotional preparation is a way uh, to quickly, through our imagination, go to some place. We visualize something that allows us to feel, to take on the impact and emotion of that, and then we can bring that forward. And it works very, very, very quickly once we learn how to do it, which can take a long time. So, so that's how we do that, and it's authentic. We don't force emotion. We don't act emotion. We don't want to show how the character's feeling, we need to really feel it, which is why we train so long and hard in emotion. There's semester after semester in just that training. So let's see, Matt, you had another question. Let's see. Advice for anyone who works a typical 9 to 5 corporate job for to make money, but wants to get into the industry and feels like you have to give up financial stability to make it work. So, great question. If you really want to get into the industry, at some point, you will need to make changes. Now, financial stability is a big safety in our life. And I come from the corporate world. I worked over a decade in the corporate world, and I had all the financial stability that I could want. But I was miserable at the same time because I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. And so at some point, I needed to make a shift, a change, and I gave it up. I gave up the corporate life uh, and all of that money because I simply wasn't happy and the money wasn't making me happy. We think that it does. Money makes you feel safe, it doesn't make you happy. What you do, like now, if you're working in a job that you love and also you're gaining money for that, well, that's great. That's a win-win, right? So now you have financial security plus you have happiness in your job. That's wonderful. Where I wasn't having happiness in my job or happiness in my life. I just had the financial security, so I needed to make that change. And going into the art, it's difficult because we need jobs, financial jobs that are more flexible. And so at some point, we transition away from the 9 to 5 and we go into something that allows us to have more flexibility. It's scary to do that, but it's possible to do that. Now, we don't just jump. We don't just quit our job and then start acting. It doesn't work like that. So we train, right? We keep our job when we start and we train. We train in the evenings, we train on the weekends. We do whatever we can with the time that we have. Uh, then when you start going on to maybe some auditions, hopefully you might have a job that allows you a little bit of time off here and there, and you can, because auditions are during the day, during the week and during the day, to start going on auditions. But if you begin booking a couple things, that will be an income source. So then you can work, because typically things that if you're volunteering for student film, community theater, those are all going to be done in the evenings and on the weekends. So you don't really, it doesn't interfere, because so many actors that work in student film, independent film, community theater have normal jobs, so they understand that, and so that's okay. But going in professionally, then you can begin maybe taking some of your vacation days or taking personal days off of your corporate job to go film the commercial or go film whatever it is that you're doing. But you're getting paid and there's money coming in and you're starting to build up your career. At some point, you need to decide, what do you want to do? Because it's if you hold on to that corporate job for too long, it won't allow you to fully go there. So typically, we give up a full-time job for maybe 2 part-time jobs, and we do that. And in our third job, we have 2 part-time jobs financially. Our third job is acting, and it's starting to bring in money. Well, eventually, that brings in more money, and we can drop one of the part-time jobs. And then eventually brings in more money, and we can drop the third one, and we're just doing acting full time. It's difficult. It really is hard to do. What I would say is, if you're in a corporate job right now, save as much money as you can. Save money. Try not to get into a habit of spending everything that comes in. And this is just it's a lifestyle choice. But for example, do you really need a new higher priced car, or can you work with a used car? You see what I mean? Like decisions like that. When we tend to get into a higher priced lifestyle, it's even more difficult to make the transition into acting. So it's a hard one to do, but it absolutely is possible. For right now, train. Train in the evenings, keep the job. At some point, you will, if you have a desire that, my God, I really want to do this, then that desire will push you and, I believe, show you the answer of what you need to do next. All right, couple more, and then we're almost out of time. Do you think theme park acting works as training for film? I think theme park acting is great. I'm a big fan of it. Most of it. There's two different types. There's the stage performances, and then there's live interaction performances. And I think they're both wonderful. Is it training for film? Not necessarily directly. I still think you need classes on top of it because theme park acting is more of the guest experience. So it doesn't really give you what you need for film, but it's still a very good experience and will give you training and staying into a character, interacting and adjusting. There's still so many benefits to theme park acting. So I'm a big fan of actors that work in the theme parks. Since there are no acting schools where I live, are online classes worth it for training? So, all right, so great question because maybe you live in an area either remote or you don't live near a big city or where there's classes to go to. So, ideally, yes, you would go into a class. But if you don't have that ability, well, we want to still train in some way. So now, the silver lining that the past few years has given us is now the ability to learn how to train online, and it's one thing that we had to do it at Truthful Acting, and then also I was teaching at at UCF. I teach over there, and at the time we went online as well. And I had to learn both. How do I teach in the university, and how do I teach at the studio? How do I teach online? And we were thrust into it. And but we learned over the course of a year and a half. We learned how to take our training and adapt it as well online. And right now in our studio, we have a hybrid approach, meaning we have students that are in the classroom, but we also have students from all over the country that are live on Zoom with us. And the great thing is they're not simply observing, but they're interacting. We get them involved as much as we possibly can in those online seats. We bring them through, they do the exercises as much as possible. So we try to keep it where it's not just watching a class, but it's interacting with that class. So, what I would say with that is if you can find a studio, whether it's ours or someone else's, that allows you to be involved with the class, even online, it can work. And you can get some training out of that. And those classes are worth it. The observation ones they're okay, when you're just observing. The only thing is that acting is about doing. And so while we're watching it, we might intellectually learn something, but until we actually apply it and put it into action ourselves, we don't get the deeper lesson. So that's what I would suggest is find the online environments that allow you to practice it yourself. And then let's see. So Nick is asking, how would an actor starting in film find representation uh, in the Orlando area? So once they have already received training, of course. Okay, so as far as representation with an agent, so as an actor, once we get some training uh, underneath us, we sign with an agent, a talent agent. The talent agent is the person that has access to the paid auditions, like the paid film, paid commercials, the bigger things. It's a filtering system to make sure not just anyone auditions for this. The productions want to make sure that there's a certain level of actor that they're seeing, that they're auditioning. And so it filters through. The production hires a casting director. The casting director has the breakdown of the auditions that they need to do. They send those out to the agents. And then the agents, if you're on their list, will look through and say, hey, you're right for this part. I'm going to send you on this audition. And that's how that works. So really that's what we need to do is get the representation with the agent. The way to do that is once you have training, like if you train with us, we kind of help you, we guide you in which way to go. But really, you can look up online, like in Orlando, you can look up, acting agents or talent agents Orlando and Google, and you'll have a ton of them. You go onto their websites, and each of them has a submission process, and they're different. So you have to go to each one's website, and you look, and it says, new talent or submission, and you look, and it says, to submit as new talent to submit, do the following things. You'll need a headshot and you'll need a resume. You'll need both of those things, which we help guide you through in our process. But if not, you can look around for that. But you'll need both of those things. Um, and then typically they might ask for a cover letter, or who knows what they're going to ask for. And there's either a form on the website or an email address, but there's a way to submit. And that's it. And then you submit to those agents and you wait to hear back. And that's pretty much the process for that. So, all right. So let's see if I can get to one more question here. So what's more important for an actor just starting off, or an actor that's been acting for a while? Is getting training more important or getting an agent first? Training, Malik, absolutely. Training is more important than the agent, because the agent is going to look for training. It's the number one thing that agents look for. I mean, across the board, whether you're here, whether you're in New York, whether you're in LA, it doesn't matter where you are. The number one thing they look for is training, because they want to see that you've done work, that you've taken classes. They prefer deep level process, but that you've taken classes and that you're willing to put in the work to do this. And so that's number one. The second thing that they look for, and this is even in LA. So when you go to Los Angeles and you want to work in film, the thing the agents look for on your resume is theater. They want to see that you've done theater. They understand that theater acting is so important. And if you've been hired by a theater to do a show, there's a certain level of rehearsal process you have to do. There's a certain level of work to do full memorization of the script before you're on stage and the run of the show. And if they see you've done that a couple times, that's way more impressive than any film credit you can have on your resume. So training is number one, theater is number two, as far as what you want, on your resume. As far as agencies for acting, there's so many different agencies for acting. There's really not one that is better than any others, especially here in the Southeast. They all have access to do the same thing. When you're going for an agent, the biggest thing to understand is that it's a relationship. That's really what you're working on. So when you're when you're signing with an agent, it's a two-way street. You need to sign with someone that you can feel you have a good relationship with. You like what they have to offer, they like what you have to offer, and you have a good communication with them. That is the most important thing, because even a small boutique agency can be just as strong than a bigger, more powerhouse agency that just carries more people. Neither one are better than the other. They both have access to the same material. They all have access to the same auditions. The difference is, who do you have a better relationship with? If you have a good relationship with your agent, they will think about you when this audition comes up, and they will send you out on the audition. So that's really the most important thing when signing with an agent. Build a relationship with them, and that will get you so much further. So okay, I think we have reached our time. So we have other sessions on our YouTube page. So after we're done with these sessions, I host them on YouTube. And so I cover so many different topics. So you should go over there and take a look at it. If you like any of the other topics, go ahead and watch those videos as well. We'll be doing another one probably in about in a few weeks. I'll be announcing that on the website soon. So hopefully you can come back, spend some time with us, and we'll talk more about acting. So in the meantime, if you want to reach out to us, you can also contact us here. You can email us at info@truthfulacting.com, or you can call or text us at this number below. And when you call or text us, you'll be getting Samantha, who's on here with us, who's our administrator, and Sam, you'll reach her directly. She's more than happy to talk to you, answer any questions you have, or help you out in any way. We do have a new semester enrolling, and you can go to our website, truthfulacting.com, and find all the information you have there as well. But thank you so much for taking the time and spending it with me today. I loved the interaction. It was great. And see you all soon.